I need to tell you what happened to my roommate during finals week last semester before someone finds this recording and deletes it like they deleted everything else. My name is Jake Morrison, and I'm a junior at Whitmore College in Vermont. 3 weeks ago, my roommate Eric disappeared, and the college is saying he withdrew voluntarily, but that's a lie. Eric didn't withdraw. Something took him during our study group, and I watched it happen, and no one believes me because the security footage shows something impossible. Eric and I had been roommates since freshman year. Good guy. Pre-med. Brilliant, actually. He was the kind of student who never struggled, never stressed. Aced every exam without breaking a sweat. But last semester was different. Organic chemistry was destroying him. He was failing for the first time in his life, and it was breaking him mentally. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating regularly, spent every night in the library studying until they kicked him out at 2 a.m. I tried to help, but I'm a journalism major. I don't understand chemistry. So Eric found a study group. 5 other students, all pre-med, all struggling with the same class. They started meeting every night in the basement of Morrison Hall. That's the oldest building on campus, built in 1847. Used to be a hospital during the Civil War. Now it's mostly classrooms and a few study rooms that no one uses because the heating doesn't work and the lights flicker constantly. The study group met in room B7. Eric said it was perfect because no one else ever went down there, so they wouldn't be disturbed. He'd come back to our dorm around 3 a.m. every night, exhausted but optimistic. Said the group was helping. Said he finally understood the material. After 2 weeks, he was acting different. Not bad different at first, just distant. He'd stare at nothing for long periods. Wouldn't respond when I talked to him. He stopped going to his other classes. Only went to organic chemistry and the study group meetings. When I asked him about it, he said he was fine, just focused. But his eyes looked wrong, glassy, unfocused, like he was looking through me instead of at me. One night I decided to check on him. It was around midnight. I knew the study group would be in session. I walked across campus to Morrison Hall and went down to the basement. The hallway lights were off except for one fluorescent fixture that was flickering so badly it gave me an instant headache. I found room B7 at the end of the corridor. The door had a small window. I looked through it. 6 students sitting around a table. Eric and 5 others. They had textbooks open, but no one was reading. They were all sitting perfectly still, staring at something in the center of the table. I couldn't see what it was from my angle. I watched for maybe 5 minutes. None of them moved. Not a blink. Not a twitch. Just 6 people frozen, like statues staring at the table. Then Eric spoke. I couldn't hear what he said through the door, but I saw his lips move. Then all 6 of them stood up simultaneously, perfectly synchronized. They moved their chairs back at the exact same time, making the exact same scraping sound. They all turned to face the wall. Then they started speaking in unison. I still couldn't hear the words, but I could see all 6 mouths moving in perfect sync, saying the same thing. I opened the door. The temperature in that room was at least 20 degrees colder than the hallway. I could see my breath. The 6 students didn't acknowledge me. They kept facing the wall, speaking in unison. I walked closer and finally heard what they were saying. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language I recognized. Just sounds. Repetitive sounds in a rhythm that made my head hurt to hear. On the table in the center was a book. Not a textbook. Something old. Leather-bound. No title on the cover. The pages were yellowed and covered in handwritten text and diagrams. I tried to get Eric's attention. Said his name. Touched his shoulder. He was ice cold through his shirt. He didn't respond. Just kept chanting with the others. I grabbed the book off the table. The moment I touched it, all 6 students stopped chanting and turned to look at me. All at once. Same movement. Same speed. And their eyes. Their eyes were completely black. No whites. No irises. Just black from edge to edge. They stared at me for maybe 3 seconds. Then Eric smiled. Not his smile. Something else. Too wide. And he said in a voice that sounded like his, but felt wrong. You shouldn't have interrupted. We were almost finished. Now we have to start over. Unless you'd like to join us. There's room for 7. I ran, took the book with me, got back to my dorm, and locked the door. I examined the book. It was handwritten in English, but the sentences didn't make sense. Instructions for something. Phrases like maintaining consciousness across vessels, and the transfer requires willing participants, and group synchronization increases success rate exponentially. There were diagrams of human heads with lines connecting them, showing some kind of network or connection. And there was a date on the first page. April 3rd, 1847. The year Morrison Hall was built. I tried to research the building's history. Found old records in the library archives. Morrison Hall wasn't originally a hospital. It was an asylum. A private psychiatric facility that operated from 1847 to 1863. The founder was a doctor named Elias Morrison. He believed that mental illness was caused by the soul being trapped in a damaged body, and that the solution was to transfer the consciousness to a new vessel. He experimented on patients. The asylum was shut down after reports of mass deaths. 23 patients died in 1 week in April 1863. The official cause was listed as influenza, but witness accounts described something else. Described patients acting in perfect synchronization. Described them chanting in the basement in a language no one understood. Described Dr. Morrison's final experiment, where he attempted to link the minds of his patients into a collective consciousness that could transfer between bodies freely. The experiment failed, or everyone thought it failed. The asylum was closed. The building was abandoned for decades. Then in 1921, it was renovated and became part of Whitmore College. Eric didn't come back to the dorm that night, or the next night. On the 3rd day, I reported him missing to campus security. They found him at his 8 a.m. organic chemistry class, sitting in his usual seat, taking notes, acting completely normal. When they asked him where he'd been, he said he'd been in the dorm the whole time. Said he'd see me every day. Security called me in, asked why I'd filed a false report. I told them Eric hadn't been in the dorm. They showed me security footage from our dorm hallway. The footage showed Eric entering and leaving our room multiple times over the past 3 days. Showed him going to classes, going to meals, living his normal routine. But I knew that wasn't Eric. I'd been in that room. I'd slept in that room. Eric was not there. Security didn't believe me. Said maybe I'd been stressed and confused. Said filing false reports was a serious offense. I confronted Eric when he came back to the dorm that evening. Asked him where he'd really been. He looked at me with those black eyes, except they weren't black anymore. They were normal brown. And he said, "I've been here, Jake. I'm always here now. We're all here now. The transfer was successful. We're sharing this vessel and 5 others. We move between them as needed. The organic chemistry exam is in 2 days. We'll all ace it. All 6 of us. We understand everything now because we're thinking with 6 minds simultaneously. It's beautiful. You should join us. Room B7. Tonight at midnight. We can make room for 7. We can make room for 8. We can make room for everyone eventually. That's the goal. Everyone connected. Everyone sharing consciousness. No more loneliness. No more individual suffering. Just unity." I moved out that night. Got a different dorm assignment. Reported everything to the dean of students. They investigated. Found nothing unusual. Eric and the 5 other students in his study group all maintained that nothing strange had happened. All 6 aced the organic chemistry final. Got perfect scores. Identical answers on every question. The professor noted it was statistically impossible for 6 students to make the exact same mistakes on the same questions, including the same incorrect answers, but there was no evidence of cheating. They'd sat in different parts of the exam room. No communication was possible. Yet somehow, they produced identical tests. The professor let it go. Said maybe he'd written confusing questions that led students to the same wrong conclusions. I still have the book. I've hidden it. I don't know what to do with it. I've tried to destroy it, but it won't burn. Won't tear. I've tried throwing it away, but it reappears in my room. I think it wants me to use it. I think it wants me to go back to room B7. I see Eric sometimes on campus. He's never alone anymore. He's always with one or more of the other 5 from the study group. They walk in sync. They eat in sync. I've watched them in cafeteria. They bring their forks to their mouths at the exact same time. When one speaks, the others mouth the words silently. They're not individuals anymore. They're parts of something larger. And they're recruiting. I've seen them talking to other struggling students, inviting them to study sessions, offering help. Last week I counted 12 students walking in sync across the quad. This week it's 18. It's spreading. And no one notices because the students still act normal when they're being observed. They still get good grades. They still go to class. But when they're alone together, they drop the pretense, and you can see what they really are. A hive mind living in stolen bodies, continuing an experiment that started in 1847 and never actually ended. If you're a college student and someone invites you to a study group in a basement, especially in an old building, especially if they promise you'll understand everything after just a few sessions don't go. If your roommate starts acting different, staring at nothing, stops sleeping normal hours, and their eyes look wrong, get away from them. And if you ever find a leather-bound book with no title that discusses consciousness transfer, destroy it, or get rid of it immediately, because once you touch it, you become part of its network, and it will try to bring you into the collective. I'm uploading this recording to every platform I can find because I think they're coming for me soon. I see them watching my dorm, standing outside in groups of 6 or 12 or 18, just watching, waiting. I don't think I have much time left. If this video reaches you and you're at Whitmore College or any college with buildings that used to be something else, check the basement. Check for study groups that meet late at night. Check for students who move in perfect synchronization. And if you find them, don't interrupt them. Don't let them see you, because they're always looking for more vessels to occupy, more minds to absorb into their collective, and they're very persuasive when they want to be. Subscribe to this channel if you want updates on what happens next, assuming I'm still myself when I post them. And if you're in college, right now check on your roommates. Make sure they're still acting like themselves, because the collective is spreading, and it's been doing this for 177 years, and it knows how to hide, and it knows how to wait, and it knows how to make you think everything is normal right up until the moment you're not yourself anymore. This is the official incident report that was never filed by resident advisor Sarah Chen regarding events in Hutchinson Hall Room 412 during the fall semester of 2022 at Lakewood University in Michigan. This recording was found on Sarah's laptop after she stopped responding to contact attempts from the university and her family. Sarah Chen is still listed as missing. The university sealed all records related to this case and demolished Hutchinson Hall in summer 2023, citing structural concerns. This is her testimony recorded on December 4th, 2022. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a senior at Lakewood University, and I've been a resident advisor for Hutchinson Hall for 2 years. I'm recording this because I tried to file an official incident report through proper channels, and my access to the system was revoked. I tried to speak to the housing director, and she told me to drop it. I tried to go to campus police, and they said there was no evidence of any crime. So I'm recording this myself and uploading it to cloud storage because I need someone to know what happened in room 412. I need someone to know why I'm about to go back into that room one final time and why I might not come back out. Hutchinson Hall is a freshman dormitory, 4 floors, 50 rooms per floor, 2 students per room. It was built in 1969, and it's exactly as outdated as you'd expect. Thin walls, terrible heating, communal bathrooms that haven't been renovated since the 80s. But it's cheap and freshmen don't know any better, so it stays full. I have 30 residents on the 4th floor, 60 students total. I know all their names and faces and the general drama of their lives, because that's my job. I do room checks. I enforce quiet hours. I mediate roommate conflicts. I organize floor events, standard RA duties. Room 412 was occupied by two freshmen, Megan Torres and Amber Lou. They'd been randomly assigned as roommates, and from what I could tell they got along fine. No conflicts, no complaints. Both were quiet students. Good grades. Kept to themselves mostly. I barely saw them except during mandatory floor meetings. In late October, Megan came to me saying she was having trouble sleeping. Said she kept hearing sounds in the walls. Scratching, tapping. She thought maybe there were mice or squirrels in the walls and wanted maintenance to check it out. I submitted a work order. Maintenance came the next day and checked room 412. They didn't find any evidence of pests. No droppings. No nests. No entry points. They said the sounds were probably pipes or the building settling. Old building makes old building noises. Megan wasn't satisfied, but there wasn't much else I could do. I gave her some earplugs and told her to let me know if it continued. 2 weeks later, Amber came to me with the same complaint, hearing sounds in the walls, but she described them differently. She said it sounded like whispering, like someone on the other side of the wall having a quiet conversation. She could never make out words, just the rhythm and tone of human speech. I asked if Megan heard it too. Amber said yes, they both heard it every night around 2 a.m. It would start in the wall behind their beds and move around the room, sometimes in the wall adjacent to the hallway, sometimes in the wall shared with room 410, sometimes in the ceiling. I went to their room to investigate, brought my phone to record in case I heard anything. Sat in their room from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Heard nothing. Megan and Amber were both there lying in their beds, tense and alert. At 2:07 a.m., they both sat up simultaneously and pointed at the wall behind Megan's bed. There. Do you hear it? I didn't hear anything. I put my ear against the wall. Nothing. But they insisted it was happening. They could hear it clearly. Whispering. Multiple voices. Right on the other side of the wall. I checked room 410. Knocked on the door. The residents were asleep. I woke them up and asked if they'd heard anything or if they'd been talking. They said no, they'd been asleep for hours. I went back to 412. Megan and Amber said the whispering had stopped the moment I left. I suggested they were stressed from midterms and maybe their brains were creating sounds that weren't there. They didn't look convinced, but they didn't argue. Over the next 2 weeks, I got complaints from other residents on the 4th floor. 3 other rooms reported hearing sounds in the walls at night, always around 2 a.m., always described as whispering or scratching, always in walls adjacent to or near room 412. I submitted another maintenance request. This time maintenance did a more thorough investigation. They opened up access panels in several rooms to look inside the walls. They found something weird. Inside the wall cavity adjacent to room 412, they found papers. Not just a few papers. Hundreds of sheets of paper. Loose. Stuffed into the wall space. All covered in handwriting. The maintenance guy pulled them out and showed them to me. The papers were all the same thing. Lists of names. Hundreds of names. Written over and over. The same names repeated, filling entire sheets. Sarah Chun, Megan Torres, Amber Lou, and dozens of other names I recognized. Current residents of Hutchinson Hall. My residents. Their names written obsessively, covering page after page. The handwriting was manic, erratic, getting more illegible, as if whoever wrote them was losing control or sanity. I reported this immediately to campus police. They came and collected the papers. They investigated, checked for fingerprints. The handwriting analyst said the papers were written by multiple people, but there was no match to anyone in the university database. The paper itself was old, yellowed. The analyst estimated some of it had been in the wall for years, maybe decades. But the names were current. Names of students who lived in Hutchinson Hall right now. Campus police had no explanation. They said someone was playing an elaborate prank. They increased patrols around the building and told me to report any suspicious activity. The day after the papers were removed, Megan stopped coming to class. Her professors reported her absent. I went to check on her. Found her in room 412, sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. Amber wasn't there. Megan didn't acknowledge me when I entered. I said her name several times. Finally, she turned to look at me, and her expression was empty, vacant. She said, "They want us to write. They've been asking us to write. They've been asking for years. The people in the walls. They're not whispering anymore. They're talking clearly now. They're telling us what to write. They say if we write the names become real. The names take form. They say we're supposed to add our names to the list. We're supposed to write our names over and over until we forget we were ever anything else. Until we become just names on paper in the walls." I tried to get Megan to come with me to the health center. She refused. Said she needed to stay. Said they would be upset if she left. I asked who they were. She pointed at the wall. "Everyone who's been writing. Everyone who's been here before us. Everyone who got stuck. They're all on the walls. They've been here since the building opened. Writing names. Becoming names. They want us to join them." I called campus police. While I was on the phone, Megan picked up a pen and a notebook from her desk. She opened to a blank page and started writing. Her name. Over and over. Megan Torres. Megan Torres. Megan Torres. Filling the page. I tried to take the notebook from her. She grabbed it back with shocking strength and screamed at me. Not words. Just a scream. Raw and desperate and not entirely human. Campus police arrived with a counselor from the health center. They took Megan to be evaluated. Amber returned to the room later that evening, and I sat with her to explain what happened. Amber said she'd been experiencing the same compulsions, the urge to write names. She'd been resisting, but it was getting harder. She said the voices in the walls were louder now, more insistent. They weren't asking anymore. They were demanding. I moved Amber to a different room immediately. Told her she couldn't go back to 412. I sealed the room, put a lock on the door that only I could open, submitted a report to housing requesting the room be taken out of inventory indefinitely. Megan was held for psychiatric evaluation for 3 days, then released back to campus. She seemed better, calmer, said she didn't remember much of what happened, said she'd been stressed and sleep-deprived, and it had caused some kind of episode. She went back to classes, went back to normal life. But she refused to go anywhere near Hutchinson Hall. She moved off campus with relatives and withdrew from the dorm entirely. I thought it was over. Then I started having the dreams. Every night. Same dream. I'm in room 412, and the walls are transparent. I can see inside them. Thousands of sheets of paper. Thousands of names. And faces. Faces pressed against the inside of the walls, trying to push through. Trying to get out. And I recognized the faces. Former students, former residents, people who lived in Hutchinson Hall over the past 50 years, all trapped in the walls, all reduced to names on paper. And in the dream, they're calling to me, telling me to add my name to the list, telling me I belong there too. Sarah Chun, write it. Sarah Chun, fill the pages. Sarah Chun, join us. I started researching the building's history. Found records from when it was constructed in 1969. The construction company used was called Hutchinson Builders, owned by a man named Robert Hutchinson. He donated money to the university, and they named the dorm after him. But I found something else. Before construction started, there was a structure on that site, a small boarding house that operated from 1923 to 1967. Boarding house had a reputation. People who stayed there said they heard sounds in the walls, voices, whispering. Several residents over the years reported feeling compelled to write. They'd fill notebooks with the same words over and over. Most checked out early, disturbed by the experience, but a few didn't check out. A few disappeared. Between 1923 and 1967, 8 people went missing from that boarding house. No bodies were ever found. The building was eventually condemned and demolished, and then Hutchinson Hall was built on the exact same foundation. I think whatever was in the boarding house is still in Hutchinson Hall. I think it exists in the walls and the spaces between rooms. I think it collects people, takes their identities, reduces them to names written compulsively over and over until the person forgets they were ever more than just a name. And once you're reduced to just a name, You become part of the walls, part of the structure, trapped forever, writing more names, trying to add more people to the collection. I told the housing director everything, showed her my research, showed her the papers maintenance had found. She listened, and then she said she was concerned about my mental health, said the stress of being an RA was clearly affecting me, said I should consider stepping down from the position and focusing on my own well-being. She said there was nothing wrong with Hutchinson Hall, and that suggesting otherwise could cause unnecessary panic among residents. She strongly implied that if I continued talking about this, I'd face disciplinary action for spreading false information. But I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop hearing the voices. They're not just in room 412 anymore. I hear them in my own room. I hear them in the hallways. I hear them calling my name. Sarah Chun. Sarah Chun. Write it down. Make it real. Join us. Last night I woke up at 2 a.m. and found myself sitting at my desk with a pen in my hand and a notebook in front of me. The page was filled with my name. Sarah Chun written over and over in my handwriting. I don't remember writing it. I don't remember waking up. But there it was. 20 pages filled with my name. I'm going back to room 412 tonight. I need to understand what's in those walls. I need to see if I can communicate with whatever is trapped there. Maybe I can help them. Maybe I can find a way to release them. Or maybe I'll end up like them. Another name on another piece of paper stuffed into the walls of Hutchinson Hall. If this recording reaches anyone, and I don't post an update within 24 hours, send people to room 412. Break down the door if you have to. Check the walls. Pull out all the paper. Count the names. See if mine is there. And if you're a student at Lakewood or any university, and you start hearing voices in the walls telling you to write, listen to me very carefully. Don't write. Don't add your name to whatever list they're creating. Fight the compulsion. Get out of the building. Because once your name is on that paper, you're not a person anymore. You're just a name. And names can be forgotten. Names can be erased. Names can be trapped in walls for 50 years, writing more names, trying to fill the world with names, until everyone is reduced to just words on paper, and no one remembers what it was like to be real. I'm ending this recording now. I'm going to room 412. If you want to know what I find, subscribe to this channel. If I make it out, I'll post the footage. If I don't, someone else will find this and post it. Either way, the truth about Hutchinson Hall needs to be known. The building is scheduled for demolition in 8 months. They're calling it structural issues. I think they know. I think they've always known. And I think they're trying to destroy the evidence before more people disappear into the walls. What you're about to hear comes from a leaked university recording that was never meant to reach the public. It surfaced online weeks after Carlisle University quietly removed a psychology professor from its faculty listings and sealed off part of its campus basement. Officially, no explanation was given. Unofficially, 2 people vanished on the same night, and the last trace of them is this recording. On November 18th, 2023, Dr. Alan Foster, an associate professor of psychology in Ohio, conducted what was meant to be the final session of a sleep study involving an anonymous graduate student. The study had already run for 8 weeks and followed a strict sleep deprivation protocol. Participants were told it focused on dream recall and cognitive fatigue. What they weren't told was that the study wasn't really about sleep at all. During the final session, the student described something that had been happening for weeks. Every night, their dreams took them to the same place. A concrete room with no windows. A single metal door that never opened. A table in the center fitted with medical restraints. Old machines lined the walls, the kind that looked decades out of date. Flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. And in the corner of the room, always watching, was a figure they couldn't quite see. Just a shadow that felt aware, patient, waiting. What disturbed the student most wasn't the imagery. It was the feeling that these weren't just dreams. They remembered pain, voices asking questions, being strapped down, trying to leave, and hearing the shadow tell them they couldn't go until the study was complete. until they had given something they couldn't remember agreeing to give. When Dr. Foster showed the student photographs taken from the sealed basement of the university's psychology building, everything changed. The room in the photos was identical to the one from the dreams. Same layout, same equipment, same restraints. The student panicked. They had never been in the basement. They didn't even know it existed. That's when Dr. Foster admitted the truth. The student had been sedated every night, lightly but deliberately. While they slept, audio recordings were played, subliminal suggestions, carefully constructed memory implants designed to place false experiences into the subconscious. Foster claimed it was part of his research, an attempt to see whether implanted memories could surface organically in dreams. But the study wasn't his idea. In the 1970s, long before modern ethics regulations, the university ran experiments in those basement rooms under a professor named Edward Crane. Foster had been his assistant. Crane believed memories could be erased, rewritten, replaced entirely. He believed identity itself could be reshaped through controlled trauma and suggestion. Students were recruited, sedated, restrained, subjected to electroshock, sensory deprivation, and hypnosis. Many were permanently damaged. Some lost their grip on reality. One died. The university buried it. Crane was forced into early retirement. The rooms were sealed, the records destroyed. But Foster never stopped thinking about it. He believed Crane had succeeded, not just in altering memories, but in creating something else. A parallel history formed entirely from implanted experiences. A place that existed only through memory, accessed through dreams. And worse, he believed some of the original participants never left that place. The shadow in the students' dreams wasn't symbolic. Foster believed it was one of Crane's victims, trapped inside that alternate history for decades, waiting for someone new to connect with the space, waiting for a bridge. By participating in the study, the student had unknowingly become that bridge. When the student tried to leave, Foster revealed the final truth. They weren't in his office. They were already in the basement, in the real room, the same one from the dreams. They had been brought there while sedated, strapped down, their memory of the entire evening erased. And the shadow was no longer confined to dreams. As the recording continues, panic sets in. The student realizes the shadow isn't approaching to harm them. It's approaching to replace them, to swap places. The altered memories had created a doorway between realities, and now the thing that had been trapped for over 40 years was crossing through. The student's voice fades. Their screams become distant. Foster describes the impossible moment when the swap completes. The shadow takes physical form. The student vanishes into the alternate history, becoming the next presence, waiting in the corner of that room. The recording ends with Foster warning anyone who might hear it to question research studies, to read consent forms carefully, to understand that some experiments don't end when you leave the lab. Some follow you into your dreams, and some dreams are not dreams at all, but real places where others are waiting for someone to take their place. Shortly after this session, both Dr. Alan Foster and the student disappeared. The basement rooms were resealed. The university denies everything. But if you ever find yourself dreaming of a place you've never been, a room you somehow remember too well, pay attention. Someone there might be waiting for you.